we're going to talk about the front of package or the FOP, Nutrition Simple Requirements today. We're going to take what can feel like a very complex regulatory update and not make it any less complex, but hopefully make it a little bit more practical, give you some actionable steps that you can use when you are reviewing your labels and when take back to your business. So before we jump into it, I just want to take a second to thank Venture Park. We have Marlis in the room, so thanks Marlis and Venture Park. We developed this webinar, Amy and Marlis presented it to the Venture Park Growth Hub members earlier this year, and then she was kind enough to let us use it again for this conference, and we're going to present most of the same information, but also want to say thanks to Mama Boys Jerky, who is a Venture Park cohort member, who has graciously allowed us to use their product as an example when we walk through a case study example of some front of package nutritional product labeling. We're going to give some examples on them, so thanks to them. Okay, I'm doing it the right way. Good. So quick introductions. If you don't know me, I'm Danni Kneeland. I am one of the co-owners of Food Safety Solutions. I've been working in the food safety and regulatory world for more than 20 years. We'll just leave it at that. And primarily supporting food businesses in Canada with compliance and their regulatory updates and their customer requirements. I'm joined by Amy today, who works closely with our clients on implementation. Amy is the labeling brain at Food Safety Solutions, and she is my go-to anytime I have a labeling question. So I'm just really here to support her, and I'll give you a little introduction into things, but she's going to get to the hard stuff and the complicated stuff. Really what we're focused on today is some practical guidance, step by step. We are not able to cover everything in the 40 minutes that we have today. There's lots of, if you've tried to go through these regulations, you'll know there's lots of exemptions and if, accept this and things like that. So we won't be able to touch on that. So if you have specific questions or you've been struggling with things, then we are going to have some time at the end as well for questions. Okay, so today we're going to quickly talk about just sort of the Canadian regulatory framework, where we are in the space, just to ground where the labeling requirements sit. Then we're going to talk about a simple 4-step process that you can use to help determine whether or not your product needs a front of package symbol, what symbol to use, how to implement and put that product or that symbol on your product correctly. And then we'll go through a case study, as I had mentioned earlier, just to give you an example of actual implementation. And then wrap up with a bit of resources and some time for questions. Okay, so in Canada, our food regulatory system, it's not just one system. We have a layered, tiered system. So we've got provincial requirements, we've got federal requirements, so provincial and territorial. It's not often that I have a territorial person. Thanks for coming. So at the federal level, we've got 2 key pieces. So the Food and Drug Regulations and the Safe Food for Canadians Regulations, or the SFCR. So the Food and Drug Regulations covers composition, labeling, additives, and nutrition requirements. This is where the front of package regulatory requirements live. And we have the Safe Food for Canadians Regulations, which focuses more on licensing, preventive controls, traceability, and labeling as well. At the provincial level, regulations focus more on things like your facility conditions, food handling practices. But even if you are at the provincial level for distribution and licensing, federal labeling requirements will still apply broadly across Canada. So when it comes to labeling, the industry labeling tool is the go-to reference for food inspectors as well as all other stakeholders. So this is the tool that we would use when we're doing our label compliance reviews. This is the tool that CFIA references. It's quite lovely. You can find it on the CFIA website. If you just Google CFIA food labeling, food industry labeling tool, food labeling, it'll come up. And it is a great place to start when you're designing your labels because it covers all of the different core requirements, including nutritional labeling, which is where you will find the front of package regulations. And it's clickable, you click through and you get to the information and you'll have, depending on what exactly you're looking for, pages and pages and pages of information.
Super interesting. It's fun to read those pages and pages.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for walking us through it.
Yeah, we're gonna do our best. Okay, so when it comes to the FOP nutrition symbol, so it's been in the works for a few years. It was first announced in 2022, and it came into force for products that are manufactured as of January 1st, 2026. So note that it is for products that are made January 1st, 2026 and forward. So if you do have products still on the market that were made before that date, they do not require the front of package symbol on it. That is still okay to be out on the shelves. So the purpose of the regulations, of these requirements, is pretty simple. It's to help consumers make decisions about foods that meet their dietary considerations and to help them make those decisions and let them see without having to read through a lot of information if there are some particular things that they are concerned about.
Can I ask a quick question? You decided that it's like high in, like those seem very...
Yeah. Who decided the thresholds?
Yeah, I guess it's like I assume it's a CFIA like threshold that they're saying, hey, based on Health Canada.
Yeah, it would have
exactly.
It would have been Health Canada. They did have a whole period where industry could weigh in, or different. Like I remember even when I was in school, actually, we got sent it in class to weigh in and give your opinion. Like definitely from the scientific side or nutrition side, they would have gotten those opinions to establish the thresholds. But yeah, they're somewhat arbitrary. You're right. Yes.
Yeah, just wondering.
Yeah.
And if I may, just to add one little tidbit to that, in the EU, this was out years ago.
Yeah.
Way before here.
Yeah,
So
EU,
that
Mexico.
language has been out there for a while, so the influence came a lot.
Yeah.
Just as a side note.
I'll just add another tidbit. Since 2016, we've had 15% or more as a lot at the bottom of all the nutrition panels, so it's just an obvious cutoff to go with.
We have lots of good knowledge in the room, so if you have questions and we don't know it, somebody's going to know it. So this is good. Yeah.
Someone's probably run into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Amy, and she's going to walk through some specific. I'll come back, but
Okay, perfect.
I'll give it to her for the technical
I
stuff.
remember which side to go with that. Okay. Yeah, so obviously that's a bit of background, and then there's the actual requirements for front of pack, and that's where the regulations are quite complex, but we'll give an overview to start with. Step one is understanding when the front of pack nutrition symbol is required. So again, we're targeting these three nutrients: saturated fat, sugar, and sodium. And depending on what the product is high in, you're going to have a symbol used with 1, 2, or 3 of the nutrients. So you can see there's all these different formats available. I could use this laser, depending on what the product is high in. So in this example here, the salsa is only high in sodium, and so we only need to say sodium. We don't need to have all 3 nutrients on the glass there. There are some products that are actually prohibited from using the symbol. So this would be like infant foods, baby foods, meal replacements. So even if they meet the threshold values, the trigger thresholds of 15% for most foods, they're not allowed to use the symbol at all. And then on the other hand, yeah?
Sorry, I need that. Sure. Sorry, so please please also tell me, because I know you just kind of showed the sugar, the sodium and that, but I mean, caffeine also exists, correct? Because energy drinks have to say that they
That's supplemented foods, and so that's a different set of regulations. This would just be for the front of pack.
Perfect.
I know there's lots of new things coming out with the warning, the cautionary identifiers
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
You'll see it on like the energy drink just outside of here, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering, because I was like, I swear she just.
Yeah, and it's caffeine, but it could be other things that are supplemented into the product as well. I'll get down that whole rabbit hole. Yeah. Okay, in terms of exemption, some products are fully exempt from having to use the front of pack nutrition symbol, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, so always check on the actual guidance website is my recommendation for anybody, because sometimes there's also marketing authorizations that come through for a period of time, essentially allowing a product to be exempt for a certain amount of time or ongoing because of industry input. But this is a list of some. So if you're normally exempt from having a nutrition facts table, you're going to be exempt from this. So if you're very small, sweetening agents, salts, because it's going to have it in its name. People already know there's salt in the product. We don't need to say it's also high in salt. Really, it's just a visibility thing for the product. Same with oils like butter. We know this is high in saturated fats. We don't need to have it on the label. And then there's conditional exemptions, and this is a texty slide. So some products are exempt under certain conditions. So again, those products that are exempt from nutrition facts table, if they go to then make a claim on a nutrient, that triggers for a nutrition facts table to be used, and then would trigger for a front of pack to be used if they meet the threshold values to have them. There could also be exemptions based on nutrient contents for certain foods. So for instance, dairy products, if they are at a certain level of calcium per serving, then they're exempt from having the nutrition front of pack. But they can lose this if they add certain ingredients that then will trigger for it, for example, then they're no longer exempt. Again, not an exhaustive list by any means. It's quite complicated, so I just encourage people to go read the regulations themselves. All right, and in terms of threshold values, we did talk about that 15% daily value. That's going to be the case for most products. So if your serving size or reference amount, which usually are the same thing, is above 30 grams or 30 milliliters, you're going to be using a 15% daily value across the board for the nutrients. If your reference amount or serving size is below 30 grams or milliliters, then it actually goes down to 10%. And we'll have it in the example later, which is nice. Yeah, some people don't know this, so they go, oh, I don't meet the 15, but maybe their serving size is actually below 30 milliliters or 30 grams, and they are meeting this 10%. So something to be aware of. And then finally, main dishes, then it goes up to 30%. So just depends on the product, depends on the category. I talk about daily values, but you do have to understand what percent daily values are, where do they come from, how do we calculate them, and what are they based on, so the serving size or reference amount. Daily values are, again, they're published by the Food and Drug Regulations that have been established by Health Canada. They're essentially intended for a benchmark, and they are different for children versus adults, the daily values. And it's what you see on the right side of the nutrition facts table here. So these percentages are the percent daily value in the serving size of the product. And these can be calculated a couple different ways. Sometimes people will do their own calculations, either using a software, or if you want to go really old school, you could do an Excel sheet to get your nutrient content and then daily values in your product. Or you can also do a lab analysis to get the actual full nutritional analysis for your food, which is the way some people go if there's, it's more complex, like it's cooked, or it's not just simple math and a sheet necessarily. And this is just a screenshot basically from Health Canada showing the daily values for each nutrient. So they have them listed out if you ever want to go look. and I keep saying reference amounts, serving sizes are normally reference amounts, but this is going to be what you base your daily value percentage calculations on. And so again, CFIA has this table, and it goes on for pages and pages. For each type of different product category, they give you what their reference amount is, and this needs to be used unless there's 200% or less in a serving, and then that's actually the serving size. So I'm trying to think of a good example. Like a big bottle of pop, the one bottle is going to be a serving size, versus if you had like a 4 liter, then the serving size is going to be the reference amount. Usually they're the same in most products, but this is when you want to base your calculations on when getting your daily value.
Is there like, because there's the breakdowns kind of the categories.
Yeah.
You know, is there like, does it get pretty nuanced in the breakdowns?
Yes.
Or is there a way that you're like, hey, my product is kind of falls under both of these, but
Sure.
like, how would you?
Yeah, it's quite nuanced. Like I was just looking at one actually for seasoning, and it has like seasoning with salt and seasoning without salt, and those are different. So it gets quite nuanced, but if you feel as though your product doesn't fit into one of the categories, they tell you to send an email to a specific email, and they'll help you decide on a category or find an appropriate reference amount to use for your food if it's like really niche.
In the example you had kind of in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, well, taco seasoning, you probably
Yeah.
have some salt in taco seasoning, but it would be
Yeah.
like, you know, but you might not, or that's, yeah, like I was just trying to figure out if it would
Yeah.
like overlap.
Yeah,
Like,
totally. And
if
if
it's
they're
not a salt, but a seasoning, but it
Sure,
might
sure.
have salt in it, and yeah, exactly, so
I know.
it gets pretty nuanced, so.
I know, and that's where we might see some people, yeah, even changing like the way they're naming their products potentially, if there's flexibility.
Yeah.
But
With salt.
I'll go seasoning with salt or something like that.
I don't have to put it
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
We do have a client who was who does seasonings, who was really cognizant of that as well.
Yeah, there's certain strings that can be pulled to get around this. Yeah. All right, and then in terms of formats, there are many different formats, but you're going to see, this is the two main categories. You have your horizontal and you have your vertical. Horizontal is going to be your default that you'll see on most products. The vertical will only be used if the product has a principal display surface of less than 450 centimeters. So that's the entire surface area of the package. Or if the horizontal format does not fit on so if you think of like a very sleek bottle or something like that, maybe it's not wide enough to accommodate the horizontal format, and so then they need to move to the vertical.
Is there a certain percentage size on the package that like
They don't use percentages, they just use like brackets essentially of sizing. So from like 100 to 250 centimeters squared, you're going to use this category.
Right, but for the label itself, is there a minimum size that the label has to be on? Like if I have the front of pack label, so that high end,
Yeah.
is there a certain size that has to be, or a certain percentage of the front label that has to be?
So based on the size, so if my pack's above 600 centimeters squared,
Yeah.
in this example, I want to use figure 1.1.
We send it the right size.
And then
Got it.
it's very small, you probably can't see it.
Oh, okay.
It has the sizing, so this one is 0.29 centimeters by 3.3 centimeters.
Okay.
And I'll say it later, but I'll say it now. The files are, they're just standardized files, so they actually have them available for you to use instead of, you don't have to do your own design and make sure it meets the formatting.
Just to get it right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you're working with a designer kind of thing.
Yeah.
Already and that stuff, so.
Yeah.
If they're asking for them.
Fair.
Yeah,
Yes.
Garrett.
What if you sell pasta and it's not high in saturated fat, sugar, or sodium? Do you skip this completely, or is it a blank? Or is it a
Oh, you don't need anything. Then you're exempt from,
Then you don't.
Yeah.
yeah. You don't qualify because you don't meet the threshold amount.
healthy?
Don't say that.
That's a whole different presentation.
Yeah, that's a different one.
Yeah, and then the other thing is this will be part of the mandatory bilingual labeling. And so there are going to be, most people are going to use bilingual formats, but if you have, for instance, like a French and an English panel, then you could go to the unilingual where you have a French version and an English version. As long as it's there in both languages, it's okay. Okay. This is a screenshot from the compendium of front of pack nutrition symbols. So when I said there's a lot of formats, I was not joking. This is how many there are. Again, it's based on if you want to go unilingual or bilingual, and then they go by package size, and then they'll break it down by nutrient. So if it's just sodium, or 2 of them or 3 of them, they'll all be different file versions essentially. And you can get these, you can request them from Health Canada, as well as the compendium you can download straight from Health Canada. All right, in terms of symbol placement, I mean, okay. In terms of symbol placement, the way that's easiest is essentially if the container has a bigger height than width, you need it in the top half of the container. And if it is a larger width than height, you'll need it on the right side of the container. A lot of people just have it on top right is what you'll see, but that's how it works. And it's by, again, surface area. So if there's like a regular shape, like a triangle, it's going to be by percentage of surface area. So it might be a little lower on a triangular package versus a uniform package, for instance. For cylinders, it has to have a 10% buffer zone from the outside. Actually, if you see the cans, I brought a can. From the Sprite, for instance, you can see they've placed it on the top, because this is higher than wide, so they need it on the top, and then they'll have a 10% buffer or more from the outside of the can itself. And then there is a buffer zone that is required as well, and this is just based on the height of the letters. So the bigger the symbol, the bigger the buffer zone. But essentially they just want it prominent and easy for a consumer to see and read. They don't want it mixed in with other information or, getting cramped in with too much. Okay, so yeah, that's the understanding of the requirements. Then you need to actually apply them. So when you go to review your product, first check, am I exempt? Do I have a full exemption? Yes, no. Do I have a conditional exemption? And am I meeting those conditional criteria in order to meet that? Or maybe am I using an ingredient that still would trigger for the front of pack symbol to be used? Make sure your nutrition data is correct. So you have those specifications from your suppliers. They're up to date, they're accurate. Make sure, because sometimes new versions come and people then don't transfer the information into their database or resend their product for nutritional analysis. So that's important. You need to make sure you have correct data. Find your correct serving size. So again, use that reference amount tool to find your serving size, and then calculate your percent daily values for, everything in the nutrition facts table, but this is going to include your saturated fat, sugar, and sodium, and then check to see if you're meeting those trigger thresholds. I do want to make a quick note. Saturated fat is a little nuanced because in the nutrition facts table, the saturated fat value is actually a combination of saturated fat and trans fat. But for the front of pack value, you only want to use saturated fat. That's not going to apply to a lot of products, but I wanted to at least mention it.
Maybe have you seen the exemption side of it? Like someone might have an exemption and then they're like, just kidding, that exemption's done, and flipped over, so then everybody kind of has to go back and start to change the packaging over it. Have you seen anything like that? Or I just wonder,
no, not yet.
The exemption's going to be it's okay, it's pretty solid, print your packaging like this.
Oh yeah, no.
From a safety perspective, print it with this label either way, because it's probably going to be coming down the pipeline kind of thing. No, exemptions will be, they're solid. If they want to make a change, normally they'll give it a decent transition period. Okay. The market authorizations, I'm always a little bit wary of. But again, they should give a transition period if they decide this is no longer valid. Yeah. They're supposed to be reasonable about it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you asked about your pasta. In my opinion, you should document either way, whether you're exempt or you must use this, because
easy to then reference yourself, but if CFIA asks for it, then you can say, hey, we have thought about the regulation, we looked at our products, we did our due diligence, and then we found we either qualify or we don't qualify, and went from there.
We have a checklist handout at the end of the session that you can use to document your process, if you haven't already developed one.
Yeah, awesome.
So step 3, which is selecting the appropriate symbol. So this step is a bit more technical than complex. As Amy discussed earlier, in order to select that correct symbol, you're going to have to calculate your principal display surface, so the surface of your entire package, and consider the shape of your package, the language requirements that you need, so like bilingual or unilingual, and which triggered nutrients, because as Amy said, there are lots of different files in the compendium, and so you just need to decide which one you're going to use. And then when you figure that out, you can go and download that corresponding symbol to add to your package or your label. Again, some of the examples are shown here on the screen. One is for a product that's high in all 3 of your triggered nutrients, and one is for one that's just high in saturated fat. So if you have all 3 of the triggered nutrients, you don't have to use like 3 separate symbols. For example, you can use one symbol that has all of them on it. There's a bit of, again, variation here for things like a multi-pack. So if you're doing like a multi-pack with different flavors of granola bars or something in a pack, then there's different options for the way that you can use your symbol as well. And so that's just a bit different. So if you are doing multi-packs, then that's just a bit extra that you need to think about.
From there, step 4, you need to update your packaging. This is kind of a summary of what we already talked about. These are some products that already are complying. So we have, you can see the orange juice, the tub of ice cream, even these little York, I've actually seen these in gas stations, cookies. So yeah, like we just said, pay attention to the size, the location, the spacing with your buffer zone to make sure you're meeting all the regulations. Use that front of pack symbol compendium from Health Canada, use their downloaded files. You do have to request them. If you're working with a consultant, they probably already have a copy that they can send you. And then, yeah, I mean, consider working with a consultant as well. If this doesn't feel like your area of expertise, you can always find someone to give a second look at the product to make sure it is compliant before you go to print, because usually that's pretty expensive to make a label change.
I was gonna ask that question, do they have like an email where you can like send to be like, hey, we good?
No.
Actually, like, I know that person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that would be
Like in
nice.
my brain, I'm like, it should just be the same way that you like sending an email for like, what's my
Yeah.
category, like,
You'd think so, like
yeah,
approved.
You just like
That was
submit.
way too logical.
Yeah, be like, hey, those AI guys out there. They can
Honestly, yeah.
That might be a thing.
That
but-
might be a thing.
Yeah.
Read through the 900 pages.
Yeah,
figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, you have to release your formulation for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah,
so.
true. A lot of people also work with an artwork designer. So again, to make sure your placement is right and the fit is right, the sizing is meeting regulation. It's clear, it's legible. You don't want a bad quality image. That can happen if someone just takes a screenshot, for instance, and doesn't realize there's actually downloadable files they can use for their design. And then a lot of people are kind of in the situation of like, oh crap, I didn't use all my packaging up before the new year. What do I do? Because that's thousands and thousands of dollars. And so you can actually use a sticker in the short term. That is an allowable case. It just obviously has to stay stuck to the product and be placed properly, be the correct size, but that is okay. It's an operational cost, so you just have to, I guess, weigh the operational cost versus the cost of throwing away the labels, but it's good to know it's allowed.
So that's because what you're saying is that packaging people like, you printed some wonderful cracker packaging prior in 2005, but now you're printing product, like you're printing you're printing product, you're creating product in 2026, so that's
Totally.
that's where we're at.
Yeah, some people just didn't realize, or their production planning didn't go to
Yeah.
what they thought it would, and
Yeah.
the transition didn't line up exactly how they wanted.
Yeah.
So, be aware of the compliance risk. I mean, this is pretty new. CFIA, I haven't heard of anyone getting dinged by them yet, but it definitely is a risk. And if they're going to do a label review, this will be a part of it for sure. We'll see.
Yeah, and keep in mind that imported products,
Yes, actually, we have
if you're
seen that.
importing products, they fall under the same regulations. And so we have seen examples of imported products that have been flagged and rejected for not having the symbol on it.
I forgot about that.
Is there like a provincial kind of watch on it too? Because I know you said it's been CFIA, obviously, but just having, once upon a time, I worked at tobacco. So, obviously with the AGLC and stuff, and knowing like even in BC, there's the sugar tax now, obviously, so that's, provincial. So are you guys seeing any of that?
I highly doubt health inspectors are going and looking for this and
Yeah.
putting in complaints, but anybody can put in a complaint to CFIA, so I think you'd be more at risk of like
Competitors.
a competitor saying,
Usually
"Hey."
it's competitors.
Yeah.
Putting in label complaints.
It's gonna be like, a concerned granola mom who's.
Yeah.
Well, and we do see that we get this question all the time, right, Amy? Like you're doing a label review for a customer and you tell them the rules and they're like, oh, but so-and-so's product doesn't have that on it. It's like, okay, but it's not compliant either, but
Yes.
Yeah, you can't just go by what's out there. A lot of people are, either they don't know or they're purposely just riding the line because they feel like doing
They
it.
sit in this room and learn from me.
That's why. Okay, so let's look at an example. This is the Mama's Boys beef jerky, or just jerky. Product that we mentioned before. And so they worked with Venture Park, I believe, to implement this onto their product. And they've done it nicely. When we're going through the steps here, we've already done an understanding of the requirements just before this. So the next is reviewing our product. So beef jerky, if I were to go to the table of reference amounts, has a reference amount of 30 grams. So I'm going to then take that and look at the threshold values for 30 grams or below. So it is in that kind of niche category where the threshold value is going to be 10% rather than 15%. And so we need to use that to double check our daily values and see if they're meeting those. Which in this case, you can see I have it circled here. It does meet, it's 12% daily value for sodium. We're okay on the saturated fat here and we're okay on the sugars, but we do meet the trigger threshold for sodium. And so in that case, they'd say, okay, yep, we do have to put that on there. I should also say beef jerky is not exempt from front of pack labeling. That would have been the first thing to check in this case. So they do have to put it on their product. Then you need to go to, okay, which symbol do we need? Due to the bag shape and size, because it's taller than wide, we're going to look at a horizontal symbol. They only have the one panel, not two panels for each language. So we want a bilingual version. And then we want to calculate the principal display surface, which in this case it would be 200 centimeters squared. And based on that, that would put us into a certain category. So like I said before, they're kind of just using these brackets. So anywhere between 100 and 250 centimeters squared, it's going to put us into the 4 point somethings. And you need to look for the one that has the nutrients that are triggered. So we don't want to have saturated fat, sugar, and sodium. For them, they only got triggered for sodium. And so I want to look for that figure particular, which in this case is 4.7. And BH is just bilingual horizontal. They use those codes. So
it's not confusing at all.
It's not confusing at all. They make it a little confusing. Once you're used to it, it's not as confusing. Yeah, Sandra?
I have a question. In that package, it looks like it's like the rip-off top. So does that label have to be on the part of the package that remains?
No, not. They encourage it to not be destroyed upon opening, but it's not a requirement.
Purchase, right?
Pardon me?
They need to see a point of purchase.
Point of purchase,
Yeah,
they need to be able to
exactly.
read it. Yeah.
Well, that's Rick seems a little close.
Yeah, maybe. I'd have to maybe measure it, like to see the buffer zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But good point. I know, because there are other things on the label that cannot be destroyed upon opening. Wonderful. So yeah, once you know which one you're supposed to use, then you can go and download that file to be used on your own package. And then finally, we want to place it properly. So they've done it very well. It's on the upper half. They've also put it on the right side. That seems to be the trend. They could have put it anywhere in the upper half within here. And then the buffer zone needs to be followed. It looks like they have a little buffer zone. It looks large enough. I want to double check, but it looks good to me. It's prominent, it's clear, readable, and they should be meeting, I'll go back, they should be meeting these sizes here. So 3.6 by 1.89 centimeters.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, it's totally okay.
No,
I'm
ask.
just going through some game theory in my head, and I haven't had this happen to me yet, but I just wanted to walk it through for the crowd.
Yeah.
I was thinking of a jerky company that worked really hard, and they got their sodium down to 9% daily value per 30 grams. If they had a 50-gram pack of jerky, they would have to put the sodium warning on because it's calculated on the serving size or the reference amount,
Whichever's greater.
But if they then made a 60-gram pack instead of a 50, they wouldn't need the symbol anymore because the serving would be half a package.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this happened
This is
with
a
a
good-
client of ours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's kind of, again, like I said, there's different strings you can pull. So some people are reformulating. I see it on a lot of like ice cream novelty, like bars and stuff. They'll have it at 14% just to sneak under that threshold value. But yes, you do need to be aware of, okay, is it less than that 200% reference amount? And then does it get triggered again?
That's fine.
And this is the thing, like we had a client, it was a jerky client, and they looked at their pack sizes to
Yeah,
play around with that.
yeah.
Don't be too afraid that people are gonna look for that symbol, see if it catches on, you know? And if they don't have it, they would just go to the next one that they can see what it has. It's lazy shopping, they don't have to pick it up and turn it around now, right? So, don't worry, they're just gonna pass it up and go to the next one.
Or people become blind to it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm
Yes.
buying jerky, I don't care. But
Like
that's just me, but
stuff, right? And
yeah.
you go into a Starbucks, you can kind of see this.
I know.
You don't even realize how big.
Yeah, like there's gonna be certain aisles, like the chip aisle, the pop aisle, the ice cream aisle, like frozen pizzas.
Yeah.
They're all gonna have
All the good aisles.
All the good aisles. Every single product is gonna have it, so.
I'm buying this.
Yeah.
I don't think it's on our handout, but it
Oh,
will
it's not, but we will.
get emailed.
All the slides will be available. Yeah. And these are linked. Yeah. There's like
Yeah.
the hyperlinks in there.
Yeah, but feel free to take a picture if you want.
All of the presentations.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Contact information. Yes.
yeah.
Amazing.
Lots of good resources to use. Perfect. And then I think you were just gonna speak to
Yeah.
some of our services?
Yeah, so it's pretty complicated, and there's a lot of stuff that we haven't really covered. But just to kind of speak to a little bit of how we support people in the labeling space, as Amy mentioned, like she does this all the time. She had a excellent example product with the dairy and the calcium, and sometimes there's just nuances that you want to have a second look at, and so we're happy to look at front of package as well as nutrition facts as well as claims, as Garrett said he's going to make a healthy claim, but he's joking, he's not going to do that. But yeah, so lots of different supports that we can offer in that space, and if you still have questions after, we have a booth kind of right in the front and center, actually, right at the very back of the stage. We got the best view in the house. So come find us and ask some questions. But I think we do have a bit of time for questions today. Are we doing okay?
It's 3:21. So I didn't know if we had to adhere to the 3:20
Yeah,
cutoff,
are we?
or,
Do we have a bit of time?
Okay.
5 more minutes.
Yeah, and no, thank you for asking questions throughout. Like, that makes our life better, because it's kind of boring otherwise if you just, it's not boring for me to listen to Amy talk about labeling, but does anybody have any other questions that you want to walk through?
I know, I was like.
I asked them all.
I'm gonna ask Chris, how did you do? Did you do it good? Did you do good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. He said, I've done it, but I'm gonna just double check that I did it right before I send out my labels away. You have a question?
Baby foods and some others, like what is that?
Essentially, it's just different dietary needs, I think.
Yeah, you shouldn't be making really dietary decisions on your baby food.
For babies, we're not really concerned about
Like meal replacements, like
those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also have different regulations that they need to meet specifically. Like there probably is sodium thresholds for baby food because you're not supposed to really give them a lot of salt, for instance.
It says in that, it says in it that they're exempt because it has to have that stuff in it.
There you go.
That's what I
Exactly.
thought.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, super interesting. Thank you.
As I mentioned, we do have like a little cheat sheet checklist that we developed to help you walk through and to document your review. As Amy mentioned, even if you are exempt, it's good to document your process because that way if CFIA comes, let's say you've changed your pack size so that your jerky doesn't have to have the symbol on it, you can be like, well, yeah, I went through it and here's my due diligence and my information. And then when you have to review as well, when you're doing a label change next year, or maybe you're gonna change your formula, you can remember how you came to that decision that you made, because if you're like me, you're not going to remember it, so you can have the documentation. So feel free, grab one. If anyone wants it in a digital format, we can send that out as well. So thank you very much for coming.
Put some at the back. You want to take one?